MLB DFS picks Tuesday, July 2nd. What pitchers have caught my eye? Dylan Cease has caught my eye and your eye. 11.4 Ks per 9, a 321 xFIP. His 384 ERA is not reflective of what he has been doing. That 67% strand rate, that definitely hurts. But he's not walking batters. He's striking them all out. Needs a little more luck to get the wins, but he's doing everything he needs to do, and he's facing a Texas team, although they don't strike out a lot, he'll make up for that. They have no power. 136 ISO versus righties, 298 WOBA, and a 90 WRC plus. In his last outing, 7 Ks, just 1 hit, 9 strikeouts, a priority. Next guy that I'm going to jump to is Grayson Rodriguez. Not the greatest outing, but still pretty solid in his last start against Cleveland. Only 2 earned runs. Didn't get a lot of strikeouts, but that's a tough matchup. The outing before that, he faced Houston. He pitched really well until the 6th inning and fell apart. Tough matchup, but overall, a good game. Well, now he gets Seattle. While Seattle can win games and Seattle can score runs, Seattle loves to strike out. 28% K rate versus righties, and you got a 9.7 K per 9 guy here. And then over the last week, Seattle a 35% K rate. And we're in a pitcher's ballpark. How about that? Reynaldo Lopez. What are we going to do here? Well, he has struggled in his last couple starts. High walks, but he got through that last start. 5 strikeouts, did hold to just 2 earned runs. That's fine. On the year, a 9.2 K per 9, facing San Francisco. On the year, San Fran, 138 ISO, 302, 98. They're not great against right-handed pitching. Now, over the last week, San Fran's been pretty hot, and that's inflated by some really big games, but also by several matchups versus left-handed pitching. And San Francisco is one of the better teams in baseball against lefties, so they're not really hot. We will see when they faced a righty and a good superstar in the making righty in Reynaldo Lopez. I like going in that direction. Let's scroll down to Mr. Cutter Crawford, going down to South Beach, getting the favorable ballpark against Miami, getting the favorable matchup against Miami, just a 127 ISO, 284 WOBA, 82 WRC plus, just as cold as ever. And if you look at his pitch mix, it checks out pretty well. Now, one thing is he's rested because his last start got rained out after an inning. The problem with old Cutter is that he has had home run issues. So when you get to a ballpark that doesn't allow a lot of home runs, that's a pretty good deal. And then you look at his pitch mix, as I mentioned, Miami is second worst in baseball versus fastballs. That's typically the case when the worst hitting team, they can't hit fastballs. And they're almost near the bottom versus cutters, which, yeah, you would guess Cutter Crawford throws. So he's a cutter fastball guy, and Miami does not fare well against those pitches. Pitcher's ballpark, well rested. Yeah, he's a fly ball guy, but this is the perfect spot for him. Kyle Gibson going to Pittsburgh. Again, we've got a favorable ballpark, although it really isn't going to matter that much for Kyle Gibson because he's not really a home run fly ball guy with a 49% ground ball rate. But what really makes this matchup more appealing, although he doesn't strike out a lot, he's walking a little bit more. But again, 25% K rate, 126 ISO, 285 WOBA, 82 WRC plus against right-hand pitching. But what we really love is that Pittsburgh is the worst rated team against sinkers, and Kyle Gibson throws a lot and has an above average to elite sinker. Luis Heel, what do we think? 10.4 K per 9. Pretty high walk rate, but we like the strikeouts, especially against a Cincinnati team that strikes out 26% of the time against right-handed pitching. There is just one problem if you do want to go to this matchup, and that is Cincinnati is above average versus fastballs. And they rate out pretty well against changeups as well, and that's mainly Heel's arsenal. And if you look at the previous matchup he had with the Mets, where things didn't go so well, the Mets are very good against fastballs, and they are number one in baseball against changeups. So with the advanced metrics and even on the surface, it looks like a pretty good spot for Heel. But there are a lot of ways for the Cincinnati team to do what it does, which is to poke and prod and bleed you. And his strand rate hasn't been quite elite. It could go astray pretty fast for Heel. Or even if he just survives it, he just survives it and doesn't have the big monster game that you're expecting. He isn't able to strike out a lot of batters because he's dealing with too many jams. Spencer Arrighetti coming off that big game that he just had with 10 strikeouts. Another one of these Houston pitchers where their advanced metrics seem to indicate that things will turn around at some point. He's not really a 5.68 ERA pitcher. Look at this, 349 BABIP. And that's really high for a guy that's not really a ground ball pitcher. And that's one of the clues that Arrighetti is going to probably have some big games moving forward and his numbers will normalize. High BABIPs generally are from ground ball pitchers. Fly ball pitchers typically benefit from balls batted in play, finding gloves. He has not benefited from that. So as his BABIP normalizes, all of the other numbers will get better. Home runs are always going to be an issue. He does need to work on the walks, but he just came off a pretty strong game. He is a fly ball cutter, slider, curveball pitcher. And if you look at Toronto, they're not really great against any of those pitches. So this is another matchup where you can put together another strong outing. I don't know if he goes 7 innings and get 10 Ks. That was a pretty soft matchup that he had before. But all of his pitches check out as long as he keeps the ball in the ballpark. And Toronto's not really hitting the ball all that well with the 145 ISO, 308 WOBA, WRC plus 100. He can make it work. The question is, will the strikeouts be there? Because Toronto doesn't strike out a lot against right-handed pitching. But even if today is not the slate, he is someone you need to keep on your radar moving forward. Sean Manaea, I can't believe I'm talking about Sean Manaea, and I might be out a little ahead of my skis. Would like to see how Washington does against Peterson on Monday. And if they struggle, then I would be more likely to roster Sean Manaea, the lefty, because Washington just a 111 ISO, 282 WOBA, 81 WRC plus versus left-handed pitching. Not a lot of worries. Coming off a decent outing, Washington is pretty good against sinkers, and that is mainly what Manaea relies on. That is a concern, but they are bad against his second pitch, which is a slider. So this could go either way. Overall, I'm trusting the data and that they struggle against lefties. We'll see what they do against Peterson. I'm not really that excited about the Washington lineup against it. Last guy I want to talk about, Valente Beloso. What is this bozo even doing in Major League Baseball? Well, the Marlins needed an arm. They traded for him from Houston. Houston gave up on the guy. He spent about 7 years in the minors. He's not that old, 24. He's kind of slowly worked his way up. It's intriguing. I don't have the salary right now. And if, as I suspect, his salary will be basically near the minimum, then I believe it is worth considering. It's not necessarily I want to target Boston's bats. They do have a 173 ISO, 321 WOBA, 102 WRC plus versus right-handed pitching. And I mean, really, we love going after Boston when they're facing a lefty and they K left and right. But here's how this can work and how Beloso made it work in his last outing. Didn't strike out anyone, gave up 2 hits, went 5 innings, no earned runs. What did he do? Well, he didn't walk anybody, and that's one of the things that he doesn't do. So he has decent control, and he pitches the ball where he wants it to go, although his numbers in the minors aren't really that good. But here's the thing. He's just a fly ball pitcher. And in Miami, he could possibly get away with it. I would never want to roster him anywhere else. But in the minors, he's a fly ball pitcher. And That is illustrated by his 3 home runs per 9 in the minors this year. That is bad. A lot of fly balls. But in his one start, since getting called up, he did what he planned on doing. All right, I'll let you hit some fly balls, and they're going to stay in the park, and we'll just move on. As long as they're not hard hit fly balls, and I don't walk people and have the bases all jammed up, I can make it work. And he did. It is very dangerous, and you probably don't want to go that route. But no one's going to want to go that route. People might likely stack the Boston guys. But there is a way for him to have success. If we think Cutter Crawford, a pitch, look, think about this, reverse it. Cutter Crawford seems like a great play. Oh, his home run problems won't be an issue in Miami. Let's play him. Well, you have to play that same standard to Valente Beloso. And if he doesn't walk people and he has control, there's a very good case that, again, we see a ton of fly balls and a super low BABIP. As long as the balls stay in the park, it could possibly work. And if he's at a minimum price, he chews up innings, doesn't allow any runs, he'll get you points. I mean, he might get a couple Ks. That'll do it. Tuesday, MLB DFS, July 2nd.